Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to our budget engagement session about the city's 2023 budget and tax levy. I am the city's finance director, Nick Bishop. Approving the city's budget and tax levy is one of the most important decisions that will be made throughout the year. Our goal tonight is to share information and also gather feedback on next year's budget. Tonight's presentation will include a brief overview of the budget process, a preliminary version of the 2023 budget and tax levy, and an overview of how assessed values affect property taxes. It will be followed by a question and answer session. City staff has been handing out cards for questions and comments. Please feel free to fill them out during the presentation and notify us when they're ready to be picked up. We will answer any questions that we receive tonight or any questions that you send into the city, and we will post them on our website. So first, to give an overview of the city's budget process, this has been changed and altered by the COVID-19 pandemic, much like many processes, but this is a fairly normal process in 2022 for the 2023 budget. In January, city staff and city council met and set a mission and vision. In June, we reviewed 5-year financial projections with city council. In July, on July 12th, we had a draft budget and tax levy, and that was presented to city council. Tonight, we're holding our community engagement session on the budget. In September, we will set a preliminary tax levy, and that will become the basis for your truth and taxation notice. In November, on November 30th, we will hold a truth and taxation hearing, and then in December, we will finalize the levy for the following year. This is cyclical. If you want to give comment on the budget, it may be too late for the current year, but there's always next year. We're always working on the budget. To start, the 2023 general fund budget is balanced. Revenues equal expenditures. The proposed draft budget was about $17.2 million, which is about, about a 6.6% increase from 2022. Looking at the general fund revenue, we're increasing our tax levy by about $760,000. It's about a 5.75% increase. And we're also increasing our revenue that we expect to receive related to our inspections department. And this is mainly due to all the projects that are occurring in the city right now. We increased this budget by about 25%, almost $150,000. The general fund revenue, again, is $17.2 million. The general fund is the main operating fund of the city. We project to have property taxes cover 82% of the revenue in the general fund budget. Looking at the 2023 expenditures and expenditure requests, the building inspector position would be a new position for 2023. It is funded through increased inspections revenue. Some of these projects are ongoing and some we expect. There's Early Learning Center at Blake School, Trilogy Buildings on Blake and Excelsior, the Aladdis Buildings, 325 Blake, the former cold storage site, Vista 44 right by Central Park in downtown, and then there's the Mann Theater site that we believe will be developed. And we'll have inspection fees associated with it and also inspection work to be done. We have a fire department staffing study currently funded with the general fund surplus, so it's not part of the tax levy, but it is related to one of the positions in the budget. We have increased population, and we also have challenges filling paid or on-call firefighter positions, and we want to evaluate if it's a good idea to change our staffing model for the fire department. We also have a fire command position included in the levy, and this is just funded with the general fund taxes. When we look at the 2023 general fund budget, public safety is about 56% of the budget, general government 18%, public works 14.2%, and then parks and recreation, which includes our Hopkins Activity Center, is about 11% of the general fund expenditures. We have a few different operating levies in 2023. One of them is to help support our art center. We need to support the art center to maintain its operations, and also has a deficit owed to the general fund, which is part of this amount, $348,000. This allows the Art Center to continue to be an asset to the city of Hopkins. We also have a levy going towards our pavilion fund. We did a expansion project in 2018. It was partially funded by Hopkins School District and Hopkins Youth Hockey, but the city's share was funded through debt. We have ongoing debt service payments related to the pavilion project. We also have equipment replacement levy of $250,000. This would support equipment purchases, mainly for use in the general fund. The 2022 or 2023 debt levy, the city is in the middle of a plan to reconstruct all city streets. We pay for that with debt, special assessments to property owners, and also user charges in our utility funds. We would be on track to complete that by 2030 or 2031. We've also done some significant investments for Southwest Light Rail. We've done work at 8th Avenue, the 8th Avenue Artery, and also at Blake Road. So just looking at our debt, we have about $82 million of existing debt. About 12% is funded through tax increments. About 23% is paid for by utility revenues, so what you pay for your water or sewer bill. And then about 65% is supported by a tax levy in some way. And just kind of zeroing in on what is paid for with the tax levy, it's about $53.4 million. About 74% of that is roads or streets. 14% is for city facilities such as City Hall. 8.8% is for parks or parking lots, and then about 3.2% for equipment. The debt levy is actually projected to decrease in 2023. This is just based on bond payments falling off of our bond payment schedule, projected to be about $3.9 million. This is about 21% of our total tax levy being proposed. Just looking at our draft 2023 tax levy, general fund is about $14 million. Art Center Fund, $348,000. Pavilion, $340,000, and the Equipment Replacement Fund. The total levy is projected to be about $18.86 million. That's about 3.9% increase from 2022. Just looking at property taxes paid, about 43% of 2022 taxes would be paid to the city of Hopkins. This is based on a median value home in 2022. We also have taxes you would pay to the school district, Hennepin County, about a quarter of your tax bill each, and then some other taxing districts. Just looking at taxes paid by each entity, I know that most residential properties saw a large increase to their valuation or their assessed value in 2023 for their taxes. And I have this fairly brief video from the city of Minneapolis that will at least try to explain how your property taxes are calculated in relation to your value. We have the budget of Hopkins and not the budget of Minneapolis, so I'm expecting everyone can pretend that when they say Minneapolis, they mean Hopkins.
Every year, Minneapolis homeowners receive a property tax bill that helps fund our needs and values as a community. Ever wonder how that bill is calculated? You're not alone, so let's take a look. The process starts with a budget that is adopted at the end of each year to pay for all city services, like roadways, water, public safety, and other essential services. The city's annual budget is over $1.5 billion. To simplify this process, let's say the total city budget is $4,000. To collect that $4,000, the city will first subtract non-property tax revenues projected for the coming year. This would include fees, permits, sales taxes, state aid, and utility revenues. This non-property tax revenue generally funds approximately 3/4 of the budget, which leaves about a quarter to be funded by property taxes. In this scenario, $900 is what's left over. So that's what the city needs to collect in property taxes to fund the budget. Next, Let's see how your property tax is calculated. Your share of property taxes is based on the assessed value of your property in comparison to the total assessed value of all properties in the city. Let's assume Minneapolis only has 3 houses, and all 3 have the same assessment value of $100,000. The first thing we need to do is to calculate the city's property tax rate. If $900 is what's needed to fund the budget, then the property tax rate must be set at $900 divided by the total value of all properties, which equals 0.3 cents for every dollar of value a property holds. We then take the city's property tax rate and apply it to each individual property's value to determine the total tax they'll pay. In our example, each property would need to pay $100,000 times 0.003, which equals $300. Now let's say the following year, the assessment values change. House number 1 is assessed at $150,000, house number 2, $100,000, and house number 3, $70,000. House number 1's value increased by 50%. House number 2 stayed the same, while house number 3's decreased by 30%. In this scenario, the total assessment value of all properties in the city increased by $20,000 or 6.67%. If the total taxes needed to balance the budget are the same in year 2 at $900, then a new tax rate must be calculated because, again, your share of property taxes is based on the assessed value of your property in comparison to the total assessed value of all properties in the city. $900 divided by the total of all properties equals a tax rate of about 0.28 cents for each dollar of value a property holds. That means the taxes that each house pays in year 2 will change to $421.88 for house number 1, $281.25 for house number 2, and $196.87 for house number 3. The city still collects the $900 needed in property tax for the year, which was the same as year 1, but each house will pay a difference of an increase of $121 for house number 1, a decrease of $18 for house number 2, and a decrease of $103 for house number 3. So how did that happen? Let's take a look. In our example, the total assessment value increased by $20,000 or 6.67% in year 2. Even though the city collected the same amount of taxes, $900, each property paid a different amount based on their assessed values. House number 1's value grew faster than the total assessed value of the city, so they saw a property tax increase, while house number 2 and 3's value grew less than the total city assessed value, so they saw a decrease. We should also note in this situation that house number 1's home value increased by 50%, while their property tax increased by only 41%. Why is that? Remember, your share of property taxes is based not just on the assessed value of your property, but the assessed value of your property in comparison to the total assessed value of all properties in the city. And even when the total amount of taxes collected goes up, it's possible for your individual property tax bill to go down. Again, it all depends on how your property tax value has changed in comparison to the city's total property value, and how much tax in total the city needs to collect in order to pay for the services we deliver. And please note that the property taxes levied by Hennepin County and Minneapolis Public Schools show up on the same bill as city property taxes. We hope this helps you better understand how we calculate the city's share of your property taxes. If you have further questions, visit the city website or call the budget office.
All right. I hope that gave a good overview of how property taxes are calculated. Just trying to bring it back to what that means for your Hopkins property taxes. The total market value in Hopkins for this tax cycle increased by about 10.8%. The value of residential properties, so that would be houses, single-family homes, duplexes, condos, townhomes, increased by about 14.2%. And the value of the median value home, so median value of single-family home, increased by about 14.6%. And that does mean that an additional portion of the property taxes are going to shift away from apartments and away from commercial and industrial parcels and onto residential users. This chart shows the orange, the columns on the left are from 2022, and the blue on the right is from 2023. So just in this, this 1 year period, the residential properties in total will pay 42.6% of whatever we decide to levy as taxes, compared to 40.6% in 2022. And that is a change that we can calculate out. Just looking at 2023, I know I earlier said that we're going to have about a 3.7% levy increase. If we did not have any levy increase and you lived in the median value home in 2022 and the same median value home in 2023, which this year is valued at $361,000, just based on the changes to valuation, you'd see an increase in your taxes, your city taxes, of about $120. And then looking at what our draft tax levy brings us to, if you live in that same home, you would have city taxes of $2,219. That'd be an increase of about $217 from 2022. And not probably no one lives in that home that went from that exact value to that exact value, but that's a good approximation, a good tool that we try to use to determine what the effects of our decision are going to do. And then lastly, this is our slide. So city taxes on a median value home. Monthly taxes would be about $185, and this is just what the actual tax levy goes to. So some of these are supported by user fees, and those are kind of taken out of this. So public safety is about $74, general government about $26, public works $21, your parks and rec, again including the activity center, about $13 a month, art center, activity center, and pavilion right around between $330 and $340, and then capital projects and debt about $41 a month. And that is the last kind of presentation about this year's budget. We have some next steps. The City Council does need to adopt a preliminary budget and tax levy by the end of September. That will become the basis for the truth and taxation statements that each property will receive in early November. We are planning on holding a truth and taxation hearing on November 30th. So that will be with City Council, and give anyone an opportunity to speak about the tax levy. And then before the end of December, we need to finalize our budget and our tax levy. And that can, and that will set the levy for 2023. I'm Nick Bishop, again, the Finance Director. My number, 952-548-6330. That's my email. And this is also the webpage. The easiest way would be to go to www.hopkinsmn.com and just type in city budget process in the upper right corner. And you can see some information in text form about the budget. With that, I will leave it to anyone who has any questions or answers.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I do have one question.
Sure. I can just repeat it unless you want to be on the tape.
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, so my question is, and I was a little bit late, so I apologize if I missed it and you addressed this, but I'm wondering about like where, like how the city budgets for requests for like housing development. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about some of the different like apartment or housing complexes, and then I'm, you know, as I'm watching, it looks like they're coming to the city asking for money. Mm-hmm. For those. How does that kind of get addressed in the budget process, or is it addressed in the budget process where there's something budgeted of like, or is that case by case and then that goes into the debt? How does that work?
Sure. It's probably case by case. It's really outside of this annual budget. This is really more our operating budget. We do have an economic development fund that has a fund balance that could be used for this sort of apartment projects that I think you're talking about. I guess I should ask I should maybe repeat the question. So we have a question about how do some of the grants or other financial assistance that we have given or have at least talked about at our city council meetings, how does that fit in with this budget process, or how do we budget for it? And I think tonight was mainly about our operating budget for 2023, and those financial requests are not really incorporated. I think we evaluate them on a case-by-case basis. We do have some available fund balance in both our economic development fund and also some of our tax increment financing funds, some pooling, some additional revenue that we've collected that is eligible to help these funds or these projects. And that would be if we are going to give them a grant or a forgivable loan in some form of cash. And then we also, like we have a TIF district for the 325 Blake project, and that's, that's taxes that they will pay to us and we'll return to them. But that is something that we, City Council approved. And I think if we had any tax increment financing, it would be like a one-off decision that's made. I don't know if that answered.
So those funds that they might pull,
Mm-hmm.
are those, does the money get in there from property taxes, or does that come from other sources?
The Economic Development Fund is, we have a separate tax levy for that. And that's kind of capped at a certain percent of our market value each year. And the tax increment financing is, it wouldn't be from like your houses or your apartments taxes. It would be actual property in a TIF district that is paying that.
I'm sorry, in the what?
In a tax increment financing district. Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think Gary can cut us off whenever he wants. I thought it was going to be